So this topic is one that I've covered many times before. Some of you may know this, but I've worked all over the country and most recently in Portland, Oregon, where homeless issues are more like a humanitarian crisis. Thousands and thousands and thousands of people on the streets, creating dramatic and seemingly impossible problems to solve. It's hard to know exactly how it got that bad, but experts are pretty sure they know how it started, and that's affordability. In a 30-year period in Portland, the city size there doubled in size. The city became a hotbed for big businesses, bringing in high-paying jobs, and those jobs attract people from more expensive cities where they sold their expensive homes and then drove up home prices in their new affordable place to live. Cost of living exploded, but wages for longtime residents didn't follow. It was like gentrifying an entire city all at once. Does any of that sound familiar? Well, of course it does, because we're living it. Raleigh's population has more than doubled in the last 30 years as well, and that's not slowing down. Meta, Google, Apple, Amazon, IBM, Cisco, Epic, the list goes on. They're investing here. Have you noticed a difference? I mean, think of your own house. How many of you bought your house 10, 15 years ago, maybe further back? You still have the same job, making a little bit more money, but ask yourself, if you had to buy your house today at the current price and interest rate, could you afford it? Redfin released a study a couple of weeks ago. They found that 40% of homeowners couldn't afford the home that they live in if they were to buy it today. And in Raleigh, we are living kind of an extreme example of that equation. Wake County is now one of the least affordable housing markets in the country, where the average wage can no longer afford the average home. This is new territory for us, but it's exactly what happened in Portland and Seattle and LA and New York and most places with massive homeless problems. But they can offer us a bit of a postcard from the future. I reached out to an old contact of mine in Portland who works with their lawmakers and business groups there. They consult him on growth and housing. And I asked him if he could travel back in time, what would he tell the city of Portland to watch out for?
The number I would pay attention to in terms of the one to really worry about is to pay close attention to the share of renters who are spending more than 50% of their income on rent.
Okay, so how are we doing with that? Well, last year, Zillow did a study showing that it takes 4 minimum wage people to afford one apartment in Raleigh. It said a person making minimum wage would have to work 144 hours a week to afford a typical one-bedroom apartment. That's 6 full days around the clock, 24 hours a day, nonstop. Now, I don't want to oversimplify things. You know, homelessness is complex. Every situation and person is unique. And yes, the pandemic created spikes in homelessness across the country. We typically explain that, though, with talks of inflation and interest rates and that sort of thing. But let's go back to 2017, about 2.5 years before COVID. UNC published a study showing that more than 400,000 people in North Carolina were spending nearly 50% of their income on rent. The math is simple. The more people you have living on that cusp, the more people will fall off that cliff into homelessness. And it doesn't take much of a nudge. A job loss, a medical emergency, car trouble, a divorce, you know, the kind of stuff that happens to everybody all of the time. So what's the answer? Raleigh's City Council says affordable housing, which I think is the next part of this conversation. But let's call it for tonight, all right? Let me know what you think. There's much more to discuss with this story and topic. Trust me, as long as life continues to be out of reach for more and more people in our area, this issue will not go away. Quite the opposite. Email me at dan@wral.com. Tell me what's on your mind, and we'll go in depth.